All right, we are now live. Welcome to the show, everyone. So this week's theme is denial, not the river in Egypt. So first up, a Democrat state rep in Tennessee decided it was going to be a great idea to interfere on camera with federal ICE operations. Then we're going to cover how Donald Trump made the South African president watch actual footage of threats of violence against white farmers. Yes, the same issue Western media has been pretending doesn't exist for years. Unsurprisingly, the left and the race hustlers are quite unhappy. Finally, the corporate media says Biden's health was fine during his presidency. Or maybe they had no idea Joe Biden was not physically or mentally fit for office. Or maybe they did know, but it's not a big deal and they chose to suppress it anyway. Anyway, so Jake Tapper is on damage control tour here, so we're going to take a look at how that's going for him. Not well. We are going to talk about all of this and more in episode 496 of the In the Tank podcast.
NBC trying to get off the subject of what you just saw. You are a real, you're a terrible reporter, and you're a disgrace. No more questions from you. Go ahead.
Oh, Trump. All right. So welcome to the In the Tank podcast, everyone. I am Linnea Lukin, your host. We also have Jim Lakely, Vice President of the Heartland Institute. Jim?
Hey, everybody. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed the little stinger at the end of the intro there. I couldn't resist putting that in there today. And it's actually from the second topic we're going to talk about today as well. So we have no Chris Talgo with us today. He is doing physical therapy on his injured shoulder. Hopefully by next week, he can lift his arm all the way up to here, which is what we're aiming for. So I know you're listening, Chris. Thinking about you.
We also have Sam Karnick, Senior Fellow at the Heartland Institute. Sam, how are you?
Good. Thank you, Linnea. Good to be here. It's great to be in the tank. Of course, just like American journalism, I'm in the tank, but I'm in a think tank and not in a basic lie and cover-up tank. I would like to mention, though, that Jim Lakely's health is perfect and he's doing very well.
That is not fake news. That's real. I'm fine.
We're also trying to have a special guest today. I'm not sure if he's going to make it or not, but I will let you guys know if he does show up. So in the meantime, before we get started, if you guys want to support the show, you can go to heartland.org/inthetank and donate there. Please also click, I cannot talk today. Sorry. Please click the thumbs up to like the video. Remember that sharing it helps to break through some of that suppression that YouTube puts on us. And yeah, we're not getting monetized anytime soon, by the way. So leaving a comment helps us too. If you're an audio listener, you can help us out by leaving another nice review. All right. So topic number one today is something very silly and potentially dangerous that I wanted to share with you guys from the post-millennial. We have Tennessee Democrat state rep brags about interfering in ICE operations. A Democratic Tennessee state representative garnered sharp criticism on Tuesday after uploading a video of herself attempting to interfere with a recent U.S. Immigration and Customs operation near Nashville. In the video, Representative Afton Bain from Nashville can be observed following federal and state law enforcement officers in the vehicle, where Bain stated that she had been bullying ICE agents and Tennessee Highway Patrol officers in an attempt to thwart a May 9th immigration enforcement operation in Madison, Tennessee. This came while ICE had been conducting a week-long targeted immigration enforcement operation to take in significant public safety threats, which resulted in 196 apprehensions. So this video is killing me. There's a video that we have for this. I think we can get it up in a second here.
It's great. We've got our girl squad and we're bullying the ICE vehicles and state troopers. So this is a win. Your favorite blonde state rep. Her phone's always at 1%. I think my superlative is most likely to always have her phone at 1%. So,
Did you text that?
no, I'm still here. Okay, so we're waiting for my phone to charge. Let me send this to Emily and the girl. There we go. Okay. Did he let them go? Oh, people.
Us?
Yeah, I think we were arrested.
Um,
My live cut out. Yeah, well, it's because your girl can't keep her phone charged. So they're probably running our information. Nikki, tell us what's transpired tonight.
So we found the ICE and the THP people. I did not put makeup on because this was not
Okay,
planned.
then I'll put it back.
No, I mean,
you're
it's
good?
fine.
Okay,
It's,
okay.
I've already seen it.
Okay.
We found the ICE and the THP people, and then we followed them to the gas station, and I took their spot at the gas station, so I think that made them a little upset. And then I tried to go in the gas station, go to the bathroom, but the gas station people would not let me go, even though.
All right, that's
I
enough
really had
anyway.
to.
So
And then when I got
they had the police. The police came and pulled them over for running a red light after they were harassing them at the or after these girls were harassing them at multiple locations throughout town. It sounds like anyway. The effect that vocal fry is just killing me in that video. It is so hard to listen to. They're kind of presenting this like, I don't know, two sorority girls, and no hate on sororities. I was in Tri Delta, but anyway, so they're acting like they're just on a silly night out, you know, goofing off to go TP the Kappas or something. Not literally obstructing law enforcement operations. So the article doesn't say whether or not they are now having any charges pressed against them, but it does seem like obstruction or abetting or something, right? I'm not a lawyer, but they did admit on camera that their purpose was to interfere with the ongoing criminal operation. So what do you guys think? Is this illegal or I don't really know.
I presume it's illegal. The interesting thing to me is exactly as you pointed out, Linnea, how frivolous they are. It reminds me of that TV show Succession, where Brian Cox's character would say, "You are not serious people," and you know, immigration and immigration enforcement is actually a serious issue. Crime, people are being killed and robbed by people who are in this country illegally, and you would think that that would be a serious issue that people would discuss and talk about in a reasonable way. And going in to break up a criminal roundup, that's absolutely bizarre. And the funny thing to me is that we're living in a world where this kind of thing doesn't even rate as something strange. It's just like, oh yeah, of course you're going to have crazy state representatives, you know, trying to put together a what do you call it, a clip for a campaign for Congress down the road. And I'd love for that clip to become popular because it makes her look ridiculous.
Yeah, and I want to point out too that, you know, the particular ICE operation that they were targeting resulted in the arrest of 196 illegal immigrants. 95 of them had criminal convictions or other pending charges. So they were all, you know, they committed a second crime once they got into the country. And 31 of them had returned to the US following previous deportation. So these aren't like just normal illegals who came here and then quietly are living their life. And, you know, these are people with repeat offenses. So it's, yeah, it's pretty disturbing. Jim, I mean, these women should probably at least get fined for this, right? Or maybe go to jail. None of us on this panel are lawyers, as far as I know. So I don't know for sure whether this counts as like real obstruction, but to me it really seems like it ought to, right? They said they bragged that they held the police up and like ICE up for 20 minutes during this operation. So
Well, I think we should use the J6 standard, and the absolute maximum charge should be charged against these women, and it should be pursued maniacally to the very ends of the law. Secondly, Tennessee, do better. All right, do better than this. And frankly, I'm sorry, women do better than this. And she even bragged about being a blonde woman. Blonde women need to do better than this. You need to get on and harass this person. And they should, how this person ever got elected to public office in a state that I thought was pretty reasonable, like Tennessee, even in Nashville, just blows my mind. Anybody who has a TikTok account should not be a public official. That person, as Sam, you just said, is not a serious person, quoting from the show Succession. But this, I mean, we're going to get into it here because we're talking about the media a lot today, which triggers me every time we talk about it. But we've created this permission structure among Democrats, obviously, and the media, that it is okay to obstruct justice in this way. And in fact, there was a congresswoman who is facing charges now for assaulting law enforcement who were carrying out the immigration laws in this country. These were criminal aliens. And it doesn't matter if you entered this country without the proper procedures, that you just came over the border, and you're by definition a criminal. But even if they are just focusing on criminal aliens who are committing crimes in this country, violent crimes in this country, there shouldn't be a single public official, elected official in this country who should be objecting to that. And their constituents need to punish them if they are not objecting to that, and especially punish them if they're not only not objecting to the removal of these people, but abetting the continuation of these criminals in our country. It blows my mind that the Democratic Party is so mindlessly has Trump derangement syndrome. It is so bad that their elected officials are advocating for criminal activity just because Donald Trump is trying to put an end to it. It's crazy. But this woman, wow, you triggered me already on an early one here, Linnea. You surprised me with that video. I don't know what else to say.
Just a quick note that this young woman looks like she's probably grown up in the era in which laws are no longer enforced in a lot of major cities. So if she's living in Nashville, it may be that she hasn't really had many encounters with the police. It used to be you could be at a rock concert or something, and the police would grab you and say, "Hey, what are you doing here?" and be pretty rough with you. But nowadays that has been really wiped away in most major American cities. So it's easy to think, oh, nothing will happen to me. But, it won't happen to you until it does. So maybe people will learn down the road. But this is really ridiculous, awful, and stupid. And this person looks like a complete fool.
yep. Well, no argument there. It's kind of shocking because there's no way. I mean, she's probably like 35 or so, right? And acting like that, I don't know. It's I hope it's not the case because they were driving, but it seems like there might have been some Chardonnay involved. Anyway, so we'll move on to topic number 2, which is that Trump deeply embarrassed the South African president this week over farmer killings, the ongoing what appears to be genocide of white farmers in South Africa. It's been happening for decades at this point, I think. So it's very interesting what Trump has done to the president here. He kind of sprung it on him when they were about to talk about economic issues, but it turns out that there's a lot more to our relationship with South Africa than I was aware of. But here's some coverage from the Epoch Times, who says President Donald Trump and South African President Cyril Ramaphosa, I really should look these up before I go live, clashed during a meeting at White House on Wednesday, with Trump presenting what he said was evidence of violence and systematic targeting of white farmers, an accusation the president rejected. Shortly after taking office, Trump suspended all U.S. foreign assistance to South Africa. In an executive order dated February 7th, the president cited concerns over actions fueling disproportionate violence against racially disfavored landowners, as well as aggressive positions towards the United States and its allies. It turns out that apparently South Africa has been getting very cozy with Iran, which obviously is not something we should be fans of. Trump stated that his administration would promote the resettlement of Afrikaner refugees escaping government-sponsored race-based discrimination, including racially discriminatory property confiscation in South Africa. Last week, nearly 60 white South Africans arrived at the United States as the first group granted asylum under the president's resettlement program. Washington has accused them of siding with them being South Africa, of siding with U.S. adversaries, including Iran, Russia, and China. A source familiar with internal discussions described the visit as a last-ditch effort to prevent Washington from adopting a more aggressive stance towards South Africa. According to the source, there are discussions in Washington to move forward towards uncoupling South Africa's economy from the global economic system, similar to sanctions Iran is facing. So that's the rough background. There's a lot more to it. And the video Trump showed was basically a compilation of South African politicians and activists chanting about killing white farmers, and a clip showing a bunch of crosses that were set up along a highway as a memorial to demonstrate the large number of murdered white farmers. Of course, the media is pretending that there's nothing wrong at all in South Africa. It's haunting, really, to see the excuses that are made when this very blatant violence is going on, and even more harrowing to read the stories of people who have been assaulted or even had their family murdered in front of them. Crime in general in South Africa is terrible, so everyone is suffering, but it seems that white people are particularly targeted, and why wouldn't they be with the kind of rhetoric that's been going on? Unless you're lucky enough, really, to live in a community with special, security. But even then, carjackings and other violent attacks are happening on the streets every day. So it's pretty bad over there. We only have a video for topic 3, right? We don't have one for this one.
We do. We have one. It's not. I didn't get the clip of him showing the kind of ambushing him. That's another word. There's a media angle to this as well. Is that I saw a image on X where I think at least a dozen different outlets used the word ambushed, that Trump had ambushed the president of South Africa. And so, don't tell me there isn't coordination and the messaging doesn't go out. But fair enough, he did, because the president of South Africa was not expecting to have that presented to him. It was an ambush. And it's probably one of the more remarkable, mostly, I used to cover the White House, and most of these, meetings in the Oval, as they say, are very perfunctory and it's very polite, and they will exchange a few words and talk about how we just had a great conversation, and we'll be having another conversation over lunch and take a couple questions, and that's it. Everybody gets shuffled out. Nothing like this has ever happened before. No president has ever done something like this. And no president except Trump would do something like this. And what's remarkable, the clip I do have, Linnea, like I said, it isn't. And so, Donald Trump is showing on the screen. So, by the way, look over here on the screen, right behind you, right behind the couch here. And it's videos of, political rallies where people are chanting, "Kill the Boers," the Boers being the white farmers in South Africa, chanting it, singing it. And this has been happening for a long time. The brazenness of the dominant political powers in South Africa to just blatantly say these things and think there's going to be that nobody's going to notice, or maybe they'll even be applauded. Who knows? And it was embarrassing. It was embarrassing to the entire South African delegation. But 2 people that were in that delegation were pretty famous South Africans. There were 2 Hall of Fame golfers, Retief Goosen and Ernie Els. If you're a golf fan or a sports fan, you might recognize those names. They both won the U.S. Open. They are sports heroes in their home country of South Africa. And it's hard. And so the media and the South African president was saying this isn't happening, right? We're not, the white farmers are not being killed. Retief Goosen stood there and said, yes, that actually is happening. And we have a clip of that. So if you want to play that Goosen farmers clip for us, Andy.
Actually just point out
grew up in an area in South Africa that is farmland,
area, Polokwane, and there is some issues up there. Obviously, my dad was a property developer as well as a part-time farmer, and yeah, some of these buddy farmers got killed. The farm is still going. My brothers run it, but it's a constant battle with farms they're trying to burn the farms down to chase you away. So it is a concern to try and make a living as a farmer, and at the end without farmers, there's no food on the plate.
So I'd like to see the media now deny that, because they're basically denying that this, they say it's not a genocide. Well, perhaps it's not a genocide on a massive scale, but it is a genocide by the definition of white farmers are being specifically targeted because they are white, and they are being murdered, and their farms are being burned down. With Retief Goosen having the courage to say that publicly in front of his own country's president is pretty remarkable, but I didn't look it up yet. Maybe people in the chat can look it up. I doubt very much there were any stories, or very many stories, in the large mainstream media in this country that mentioned that Retief Goosen had the courage to say that to the face, and the truth to the face of the South African president.
Yeah, and Americans really don't have a concept of the scale of the violence here. I mean, the stuff that when we say like, oh, they're murdering farmers, it's not like they're not just showing up and shooting them and then leaving and stuff. It's way, way more brutal than that. There's a lot of hatred behind it. So we have a clip here of some of the calls to violence that Trump showed.
Lights down, turn the lights down, and just put this on. It's right behind you, Johan.
There's nothing this parliament can do. With or without you, people are going to occupy land. We require no permission from you, from the president, from no one. We don't care. We can do whatever you want to do. Who are you to tell us whether we can occupy land or not? We are going to occupy land. South Africa occupy land. That's who we are. Can we drop my membership from this useless parliament? Yes, honorable member. Must never be scared to kill. A revolution demands that at some point there must be killing, because the killing is part of a revolutionary act. Shoot to kill. Gaza. Kill the poor, the farmer.
That is an awkward sit for them.
So these people, when you want to hit them hard,
Yeah.
Yeah, you get the picture. I mean, and that went on and on and on, and they had to sit there and take it. Now, there's a lot of different ways one can do diplomacy. I've never seen diplomacy like that, and that's actually what that was. That was intended to publicly embarrass him and to get this truth out to the world, the entire world, as a story, because there's been a lot of denial going on about what's actually happening in South Africa, and Donald Trump should be applauded for it. And he didn't do that because he wants to, he wants to embarrass South Africa for what's happening. But he has his hands, reached out in friendship. If you want to be a friend of the United States, you need to put a stop to this. And he said it publicly. So now the gauntlet has been thrown down, and we will see what South Africa will do. This could be a very, very important day that, we look back at in another year or two.
Well, this denial did not begin in the middle of May in 2025. This denial began decades ago. And this kind of harassment, and it's a ratcheted harassment. They harass and then they kill. And the idea is for various individuals to get these farms, to steal these farms from other people. It's pure theft. And so your neighbor might decide that, well, if I can scare this person out of here, I can get their farm. Well, that has been happening, and this is not expropriation. This is theft, and it is brutal and awful and horrible. And what they've been doing has been going on for a very, very long time. And the United States of America has been very responsible for this. We've covered it up. We've let it go. We've engaged with South Africa as if it were a decent and European style social democracy, when it is anything but. It has become a terrible, terrible place. And Donald Trump was the first United States leader with the capacity and the nerve, the guts to make this point and to show it to the American people. So what happened yesterday from the US press was, of course, denial, but they really knew that they couldn't deny it. So they deflected. Ambush, 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 ambush. Everybody's saying Trump ambushed the president of South Africa, or the leader of South Africa. I don't remember what his actual position name is, but Ramaphosa is responsible for this. He's been there for about 8 years now as the leader of that country. And he is, frankly, he has suborned murder, and he's suborned mass murder. And I think the reason that people let this happen and get away with it in the United States and Europe, why we didn't complain about it until now, is because of the race issue. You put the race issue on top of it, and then suddenly, well, it's okay because they're descended from people who colonized this area. Look, that's a complex issue. But the fact is that South Africa was built by these people's ancestors. And you should have a right to pass on your patrimony to your descendants. So that doesn't wash. Nobody who's a reporter on NBC is saying, well, take away all my money when I die and don't let my kids have it. They're not saying that. So this is rank hypocrisy, obviously. I mean, that goes without saying, perhaps. But what's really going on here is the absolute use of murder, the use of murder for political ends. This is not something that you can just say, well, it's not really happening, or it's not happening on the scale that Trump is implying. No, I believe that's probably happening on a greater scale than we even know. The reason being, there's incentives to cover this up. So the United States bears a serious responsibility for this, and for the president of the United States to bring in 60 refugees and be excoriated for it just shows you how contemptible the left is in this country and how awful our journalists are. And so this attempt at deflection is going to fail, because this is true, it is real, and they don't control the media anymore. We can go to X, we can go to other spaces like Substack and so forth, and find the truth. And it's going to come out exactly what's been going on in South Africa. The reason being, we've known about it all along. We've been hearing these things for well over 2 decades. So this is true. Trump told the truth yesterday. Finally, someone in the United States has owned up to what previous leaders of the United States have been doing. The same is true of Europe. Same is true of many other places. So it's only when, frankly, look, they came out against Israel, supporting violence in Gaza, and they've joined up with Russia and China and Iran. So now they're bad guys. Well, what that means, though, is that Trump can do this, can do the right thing, even if for most people it's going to be they're going to attach themselves to it for the wrong reasons. At least we get this done. We have to get that truth out there, and it has been suppressed for decades.
I did the Jim thing. Okay. That's absolutely right. Sam. And, like I said before, this has been going on for a very, very long time. And the fact that there are a lot of people who are only just hearing about the fact that, the, you know, Afrikaner or Boer farmers in South Africa, who have been there for like 500 years, by the way, are being systematically slaughtered in order to take their property. And many of them are just calling quits and getting out of Dodge if they can. It's horrifying. And the fact that it just never makes the news, and the level, like I said, like I alluded to earlier, the level of brutality with which this occurs is so indescribable that and so gonna get the live stream shut down if I go into details. um that that you would think that it would be like sensational news, but it's inconvenient news because the wrong people are being targeted, right? So yeah.
And not only that, I mean, people in the chat here have mentioned, like Chris Nisbet, just we had a comment up there on the screen saying that national news in New Zealand told us he was confronted with, quote, baseless allegations by Trump. And Chris had to read it twice to make sure he did, his eyes weren't deceiving him there and that he read it right. And you see that same kind of coverage, even as you were reading from I believe you read from the Epoch Times, even in the Epoch Times, which is no, wild leftist legacy media outlet, it's more on the conservative side, couches it in like, well, Trump claims. I mean, maybe that wasn't exactly the words here, but it's funny how the media will just take everything. Like Trump claims that farmers are being killed by blacks to take their land in South Africa. Yeah, presenting what he said was evidence of violence. For crying out loud. This is really one of the most unreported stories on the globe. It has been for quite a while. And kudos to Donald Trump for making it now, getting it the coverage that it deserves. I would hope, if we had a honest, this is too much to hope for, I suppose, but if we had an honest, functioning media in this country and in the UK and in Africa and in Australia, they would start dispatching reporters to tell us what is actually going on down there and tell us the truth. We are not going to get that because our media has Trump derangement syndrome, is basically captured by ideological leftists, and anything that would, if the choice is between telling the truth and helping Donald Trump, if telling the truth to help Donald Trump, they're not going to tell the truth. And that's the main topic that we're going to get into today. But yeah, this is now a big story. It should be a bigger story, and we have Trump to thank for that. And really, the reason Trump even did this is because he thinks it's a good idea to stop the slaughter of white farmers in South Africa. The fact that our media doesn't seem to share that view is pretty shocking.
Yeah, it makes me wonder.
They describe them as unproven allegations, which is, I think I remember hearing that term about a variety of other things in the past. And then when they're proven, it's like, well, that happened in the past. Let's just forget about it. We have another problem that we need to deal with today. So you can't win against these people, but what you can do is continue to tell the truth.
Yeah, and it makes me wonder too, because I haven't done a whole lot of looking into the history here, but I wonder if this is what the coverage was like during like Rhodesia.
It was.
Yeah,
Rhodesia went down this road, became Zimbabwe, and it used to be the breadbasket of Africa, and now it's the basket case of Africa.
I've been reading some history about that lately, and it is absolutely startling, the comparison between Zimbabwe and South Africa. And others are making the comparison between that and the United States, where we simply deny violence that's going on that is motivated motivated by race hate and other horrible things that we have been told for decades no longer exist, that those things just don't happen in the United States. And so again, it's gaslighting, but it's gaslighting on such a monumental scale that it is truly spectacular. And yes, please, folks, read up on Zimbabwe.
Yeah, and it's well, kind of the theme of the show today, as I said at the top of the show, was denial. And so the media is denying the attacks on farmers in South Africa, and the media was also denying something less serious, but very impactful in its own way, which is the ongoing scandal of the media backpedaling from their positions on Biden's health now that it has been revealed that he has a very serious cancer diagnosis that's been made public. And it seems fairly implausible that this is something new, like in that it wasn't known about for a long time. So everyone's eye is on the mainstream media here. We talked about Jake Tapper's book on this program when he first announced it, and we were all, especially Jim, pretty indignant about it because it was just so bold for him to run around claiming that they had no idea that Biden's health was bad. So first, the media claimed that his health was totally fine. They were echoing the administration's claims that videos they were showing that were clearly demonstrating cognitive decline were cheap fakes, whatever that means. And then after that disastrous debate, they couldn't reasonably continue with that line. And so Biden was very quickly swapped for Kamala. And so the media said, well, I guess he isn't doing great, but we didn't know. The administration was hiding it from us. And that seems to be Tapper's position that he's been trying to take, but it's not been going well for him, which is just great to watch. From Breitbart's John Nolte, we have what Jake Tapper and CNN and the rest of the regime media did for 5 years was not a cover up. You cannot cover up what everyone already knows is true. Instead, this was a classic Emperor Has No Clothes gaslighting campaign to convince us our eyes, ears, and instincts were being fooled by a stutter. Jake Tapper saw everything we saw, and rather than report the truth, he gaslighted, shamed, heckled, and belittled anyone who dared speak the truth. Remember what he said to Laura Trump that one time. Anyway, it all came to a head on Tuesday in 2 interviews. First, Tapper made the arrogant mistake of sitting down with Megyn Kelly, who ate him alive like a top-notch prosecutor. That's so true. She should probably be arrested for murder because she did kill him on live television. All right. He also has been running around being super tough all of a sudden on Hunter Biden, saying that he's so corrupt and bad and blah, blah, blah. So this article over at Hot Air is really good too. They highlight how the Washington Post is now waxing poetic about how sad and betrayed they feel that the Biden administration was not transparent about his failing health. Give me a break. I mean, come on. Does anyone actually believe that these guys are really surprised or upset by this? I mean, I guarantee that the second the next election comes around, they are going to be right back to their old tricks because
What?
because they are hacks. And Jim, I will hand the floor over to you because I have a feeling that you have perhaps maybe a little bit of a Jim rant to give us on this issue.
Yeah, I might. I mean, gosh, I want to thank both Linnea and Sam for agreeing. I suggested this as the main topic today because I've been losing my mind over this story and over the arrogance of Jake Tapper. But before we get into it, I think it's important to lay out for the record in the background exactly how much of a shameless liar and gaslighter Jake Tapper is. And I recommend actually everybody, because we're gonna have a clip from that too. Everybody should go to Megyn Kelly's show on YouTube or Rumble and look up the episode where she was grilling Jake Tapper. Yeah, she should be up on charges for murder because she absolutely killed him in that interview and left him. Well, a lot of people saying she left him nowhere to hide. I watched it twice now. She actually let him off the hook a little bit in some areas that we can get into because they are personal friends and have been for decades. But it was really fun to see him squirm. But before we get into that, just to set this up, Andy, you can play the Tapper Laura Trump clip here. Just the smugness and the arrogance of this man really knows no limit.
It makes little kids with stutters feel when they see you make a comment like that?
It's very clearly a cognitive decline.
Okay.
That's what I'm referring to. It makes me uncomfortable.
You have no I can't. That's so amazing. It's so amazing to me that
and try and figure out an answer.
a cognitive decline. President Biden embraces his stutter, talking about it, while Trump mocks it, exaggerates it, belittles it. He's sharp physically. I mean, mentally. Yeah. I think the question is physically, right?
Right.
More so?
Right.
Right. And the guy who's his chief opponent is only 3 or 4 years younger than him.
Exactly.
I mean, you have questioned President Biden's age, mental fitness, ability to lead. Of those supporting Biden, you said, quote, "Shame on all of you pretending everything is okay. You're leading us and him into a disaster." Do you worry that you damaged him at all? I don't doubt that you got hugs and handshakes behind closed doors today, and maybe even publicly, some of them because they like you personally. But I've heard a lot of really nasty stuff about you from your Democratic colleagues. Sure. I mean, just like, what is he thinking? Exercise in narcissism. I mean, false claims to the Wall Street Journal about President Biden's mental fitness and acuity. He's 81, and his memory, it doesn't seem great. It's not horrible, but I don't understand the outrage. Quote, behind closed doors, Biden shows signs of slipping, unquote. The Wall Street Journal is owned by News Corp, which is run by the Murdochs. Beyond the headline, there is some critical nuance here. The article is mostly based on observations of Republicans, with former Speaker Kevin McCarthy the only one going on the record. They do note in the article that most of the criticism comes from Republicans. Have you heard any concerns from anyone who has met with President Biden about him seeming a little slower?
No.
The Russians are trying to make us and the public not trust our election integrity. Joe Biden has dementia, all this stuff.
Okay. All right. So it was kind of hard to keep up with some of that, I guess. But, and I'd forgotten this part so Jake Tapper is trying to sell a book called Original Sin, in which it can finally be told that the President of the United States, from before he was even sworn into the Oval Office, was in cognitive decline that accelerated in the last 2 years of his presidency. Something that everybody with functioning eyes and ears already knew. And Jake Tapper, one of the most prominent members of the legacy media, whom unfortunately maybe half this country or millions of people trust, told his audience day after day after day that anybody who noticed that Joe Biden's brains were turning into porridge was a liar, was peddling disinformation and misinformation, was you were just exaggerating, his long known stutter. I challenge you, all of people listening to this and watching this podcast today, when it's over, Google or try to go on YouTube or anywhere and try to find video of Joe Biden speaking, giving a speech or having a campaign event from, say, 2008 or 2005, when he first ran for president. He didn't have a stutter. And if he did, it was so minor, nobody ever noticed it. It only came up as a cover story that was peddled by the likes of, frankly, scumbags like Jake Tapper. And so then I'd forgotten that Jake Tapper peddled the idea that noticing that Joe Biden was losing his mind was Russian disinformation and propaganda. So again, you have to remember again, he was pushing the Russia hoax for 4 years during the first Trump presidency as well, which was another fake story. And the balls on this guy to now write a book and try to make millions of dollars, and he will make millions of dollars, telling everybody what they already knew is just crazy. And in this piece that we had up on screen by the great John Nolte at Breitbart, he wrote, there's a great passage in there in the piece that he wrote. He says, "There is no redemption without confession. There is no forgiveness without admission." And when you watch the interview that he did with Megyn Kelly, by the way, he hired a PR crisis, a crisis expert, PR crisis expert, to help handle himself in public. He must have said a dozen times in that interview, the grilling with Megyn Kelly, that he was looking back with humility at his former coverage, the former coverage that we just showed you a clip of right here on this podcast. So, wait, humility? That's the word you came up with? That's the workshopped, focus grouped word your professional PR crisis handler came up with? That is the wrong word, Jake Tapper. A better word, there's a few better words that come to mind. Regret. You should look back at your coverage with regret or embarrassment or even horror. And Jake, in all of these interviews, never explains why he would look back on his coverage with humility. And we know why, because he's biased and he's not a journalist. He's an advocate. He's an advocate for one party and one political philosophy. People may not know this. He probably doesn't mention it very often. But before he got into journalism, he was a press secretary for a Democrat member of Congress, and then he was working with the anti-Second Amendment group Handgun Control. He's always been an advocate, and so the reason he looks back with humility is because he got caught being an advocate and has egg all over his face like all these journalists do. So this whole thing is a psyop. It's to make us forget what really happened, who was responsible for it. As Megan, basically was screaming at him during the interview. You keep saying, Jake, that the media missed this. We missed this. Half the country didn't miss this. Half the country knew it. There is something called a conservative and independent media out there. They've been covering this for the entire Biden presidency. We were talking about it on this podcast for the whole 4 years of his presidency, and even mocked the idea that he was running his campaign out of a basement and could barely get sentences out. So, I'm going to have to stop now, take another sip of coffee, and maybe let Sam get in here because I haven't even gotten through 1/3 of my notes yet.
Well, before I hand it over to Sam, I'm just going to say too that this seems to be a pretty usual pattern of behavior for the leftist media, right? Because they're doing the same thing that they did with COVID, where it's, you guys are nuts. Why would you say something like this that implicates the government or implicates Democrats? You're terrible for even doing so. And then slowly over time, once it becomes a little bit further in the rear view, they start admitting that everyone else was right the whole time. But then once you get far enough down the road, they say, well, that was so long ago. Why are you still worried about this? Why do you keep bringing it up? It's gaslighting is what it is. And it feels calculated. It feels intentional. It might not be coordinated on all parts of the media. They might just be like a school of fish that all turn when one fish turns. But it's very dangerous when a good portion of the United States still depends on mainstream media for truth and for accurate news reporting, right? They shouldn't. They're being lied to, but they do. And it's an embarrassing percentage of people, honestly. It's not just people trapped in airports. So yeah, no, Sam, I want to get your thoughts on this as well. How do they keep getting away with it forever and ever?
Right, good. That's the important question, and the reason they've been able to get away with it is the monopoly. It's an oligopoly technically, but the corporate media have simply given up any pretense toward objectivity and toward journalistic standards. What they have done is they have become simply another advocacy arm of the state. And so when they say something, it's typically, much of it has been over the past couple of decades, especially since the onset of the Obama administration, has been coordinated with the federal government. And it's interesting because this actually, what happened yesterday is a sort of it's a well-known intelligence operation where you do what's called a limited hangout. So you say, there are these rumors that we tried to take over, let's say, Iraq, okay, or Iran, okay. There are these rumors we tried to take over Iran, and we didn't do that. But there were these people over there who were kind of, they were in the CIA, but we didn't really realize that they were doing that. So then they feel like they can cut it off there. That they say, well, we admit a little bit, but we leave the rest. So what they're doing now is a limited hangout where they're trying to put all the blame on Hunter Biden. And in fact, of course, they are the ones who have been operating this whole thing, this whole system. And so what happens there, though, yesterday is with Jake Tapper specifically, he became, or in this whole past week, he became Ramaphosa. It said he walked into the Oval Office, or the equivalent of it, Megyn Kelly's podcast. He walked in there, hat in hand, because Ramaphosa, remember, the reason he was there was because he wanted to reset the relationship between the United States and South Africa, and which means money. We want your money. We want money from American consumers. If you can tax it from them, that would be best. But if you can just like push their money our way through trade deals and the like, that'll work fine too. We'll accept that. But he's coming in saying, hey, we need your money because frankly, Russia and China don't have any. That's the BRICS organization is those are nations that have really very small economies. China, China is the most overrated economy in the world. I'll say that much and leave it at that for the moment. But the fact is that where's the money? Where's where's all the wealth that you could try to siphon away? It's in the United States. So he goes to the Oval Office. He's expecting to make nice with Trump, and Trump will be a sucker and say, "Oh yeah, we'll give you all kinds of favors and so forth." And then Trump shows the truth, which is what South Africa is really about. Well, Megyn Kelly did the same thing to Jake Tapper. Jake Tapper went in there with hat in hand saying, buy my book, make me a millionaire, make me a multimillionaire beyond whatever millions I already have. And also, please fix my reputation, because it's looking bad, because everybody understands what happened over the last 5 years. And really, look, let's 5 decades. It's been getting worse and worse for decades now. So Jake Tapper comes in hand, and he says, "Please help me, please help me." And Megyn Kelly says, "Here, look at the clips. Here are the clips. Here's what's going on in your country, Jake Tapper, and you did this. It wasn't Hunter Biden. Hunter Biden could never have had this effect if you hadn't had a megaphone in front of his mouth." So that's what happened there over this past week is the same thing as what happened with Ramaphosa, and it's great. The chickens are coming home to roost in these situations, and the truth is coming out because the corporate media no longer control the way they used to, and so now you can find alternative sources that will not gaslight you. Or that if they're trying to gaslight you, at least they're trying to gaslight you with the truth. At least they're trying to change your mind with the truth. And that's really the situation here, is that all these institutions are hitting the wall. They have become so corrupt that they can no longer function properly. And for a while, people stick with them because they have authority. Those institutions still have authority. As Jim said, maybe half the country believes that what ABC News and the like say. I really doubt that they believe it, but they make themselves accept it because they want to believe it. And so, and also, I think what it really is that maybe a leftist doesn't necessarily believe that Trump did X or Y, but he does want other people to believe it. And maybe they don't believe that it was really all Hunter Biden, the scapegoat. It wasn't really all Hunter Biden, but they want other people to believe that, because otherwise, then the last 20,000 people watching CNN will stop doing so, and it'll swirl down the let's say the drain entirely. So.
Yep.
This is just the collapse of all these institutions. I mean, the collapse of the South African government. There's no government there. That place is a complete catastrophe. There's only one way to fix it. We all know that, but no one can say it. No one can say it. And if you say it, it's disinformation, it's lies, and so forth. So what happened over the past week in the media was really a lovely thing to see. Their own self-destruction, and really they got pantsed by reality, and that is a wonderful thing.
Something I want to mention really quick here, just as kind of an aside, is I saw an article the other day floating around about how the DNC is trying to pay, they're dumping tens of millions of dollars into trying to find a left-wing Joe Rogan. And a lot of people were pointing out, like, Joe Rogan was the left-wing Joe Rogan, but you guys are nuts. So he couldn't keep, on that team, so to speak, anymore, because you guys just went so far left. And it seems like a lot of the older anchors are like pretty well behind that. Not that they're old, but you know what I mean? Like the anchors that we've known for a long time in the mainstream media, they kind of fell behind if they were especially in the approved, mainstream Democrat media, behind the curve in terms of new media. And so now they're kind of scrambling to play catch up. You see this with like Andrew Cuomo and some of the other ones who are now trying to start their own little. Oh, I think Don Lemon is trying to do a podcast too. They're all trying, but they're way behind the curve. So they're kind of floundering. Whereas someone like Tucker Carlson, Megyn Kelly, they're killing it because they're, they were able to jump on the independent media, I guess, trend when it was still growing. And now that it's kind of reached, peak distribution, the left is kind of scrambling to find their place in it. And they're just not as good at it. Well, because they have so many filters that they have to process in order to say anything that they end up being very, very boring, actually.
Yeah, I was just thinking about this morning. YouTube, for the first time this week, released their top 100 podcasts, I guess, based on viewership, and I guess it's a list that they will continue to regularly release. You would not be surprised to learn that Joe Rogan was number one. I believe Megyn Kelly was definitely in the top 100. I think she was in the top 20. Tucker Carlson had a show in there. Tim Pool had a show in there. I think the Daily Wire, I think Matt Walsh had one. I mean, these are podcasts that I watch, and they're good. And there's a pop culture kind of nerdy movie channel that I think both you and I both watch, Linnea, Robert Meyer Burnett. And he said something years ago that I think is so true about new media, and that the coin of the realm in independent new media is authenticity. Without authenticity, you cannot grow an audience. And I actually looked it up this morning. I had no idea you were going to bring this up, but this is great. Remember Chuck Todd? Everybody remember Chuck Todd? I mean, really think back. He used to be the host of Meet the Press, the oldest and most respected Sunday chat show on network television. He got fired from that because he sucks and the ratings were going into the toilet. And so what did he do? He started the Chuck Toddcast. Haha, get it? The Toddcast. How freaking funny. Look him up right now on YouTube. He gets 3,000, 3,500, maybe 5,500 views on his live streams after a week. Yeah, there it is. He's got a face made for podcasting, I gotta say. But he gets like 3,000 to 5,000 views on his podcast. That's nothing. We get more of that on the Climate Realism Show, and nobody knows who we are. We didn't spend 2 decades in media on network television. He can't build an audience because he's not authentic. People will only consume when they have a choice, when they turn off their TV, if they unplug from cable, and you have a choice of what you would select with infinite choices on what to watch when it comes to news and commentary. People pick this podcast. People watch the Climate Realism Show on Fridays at 1 p.m. Eastern time, right here on this very channel. And then thousands more watch it during the week. Look at that. Chuck Todd, 4,700 views 3 days ago. Chuck Todd, wow, he almost got 10,000 on that one. That is pathetic. That is pathetic. Tim Pool gets that many in like the first half an hour he posts a video. And so authenticity is the coin of the realm in media. We shouldn't even be calling it new media anymore. Authenticity should have always been the coin of the realm in media, but our legacy media decided that their coin of the realm was bullshit. And the problem is people may passively have the television on and endure bullshit, but they're not going to select it for themselves. I was actually surprised. I looked up Don Lemon's podcast. His is doing a little bit better. not nearly as well as Megyn Kelly or Tucker Carlson or Matt Walsh or Tim Pool and other people that have just built their own careers. You can't build an audience off of bullshit. You just can't. You have to be authentic. You have to be truthful. You have to be passionate about what you're talking about. And you actually have to know what you're talking about. And we are seeing the destruction of the legacy media, which is a good thing. One of our viewers here on the pod today, Ed Reed, even before we went live today, he left a comment because the title of this podcast is How the Legacy Media is Destroying America. He says, no, how America is destroying the legacy media. And Ed, you're absolutely right. America is destroying the legacy media. I mean, they're doing a great job of it by themselves. You know, they're setting their buildings on fire, and they don't even realize it. But it's America that is going to destroy legacy media. But the reason, you know, I wanted to do this podcast today on this topic was because, you know, the legacy media has brainwashed half this country into believing things that are not true, and then told them to ignore truths that are staring them right in the face. With the Biden cognitive decline being the perfect example of that. And now we learn that he has advanced stage 4 prostate cancer with whatever scale it is, 9. That even Democrat Dr. Ezekiel Emanuel, that ghoul, even he said that it is impossible that Joe Biden did not have prostate cancer during his presidency, and it's more likely than not that he had prostate cancer before he was even elected president, because these things take years to develop and to get that bad. So I guess kudos to one person in the legacy media that's actually saying something that is true. But you know, the media's corrupt complicity in covering up the truth and really covering up the story of the century in politics in the 21st century, that's more societally destabilizing than any of these hundreds of fake scares that the media peddles about Donald Trump being a, quote, threat to our democracy. And, you know, one of the cruel little ironies here is that the Biden White House birthed one of the most dangerous threats to our democracy in our lifetimes. And that was coordinating with social media giants to censor Americans, you and me, on topics from COVID to the 2020 election, to Hunter Biden's laptop, and to the president's growing senility. Just about any story that was in opposition to the Biden regime and agenda, the legacy media had a hand in censoring or downplaying and lying about. You know, and then the legacy media championed the censorship of people who knew and stated the truth for the last 4 years before the 2024 election. And now they are asking half this country that rightly no longer believes them for good reason to just, you know, you should give us the benefit of the doubt. Oopsie, we just missed this big story. No, too bad, Jake. You don't get the benefit of the doubt. None of you get the benefit of the doubt because you have earned the opposite. And you can just keep gaslighting, and eventually, actually, America will destroy the legacy media. Its replacement is already here. You're watching it. You're watching it right now, and you're watching it elsewhere. It's going to be delicious to watch, to see people like Jen Psaki and Rachel Maddow and Jake Tapper one day on the unemployment line, because they do not have the authenticity to attract an actual audience who will seek them out for their news and commentary.
I'd like to follow up on Jim's comment there, because I think it is quite astute. The key thing here is that if we call it the legacy media and the mainstream media and so forth, I think what it really is the authorized media. These are the media that the government and its allied elites in academia and so forth have decided to authorize. And they say that this will be where the stories come from, and this will be where the truths that we will accept come from. Whereas the rest is really more like the public media, that what you're watching now, and when you're watching Joe Rogan and Tucker Carlson and even some of the people on the left, you're watching the public media, which is, it's available to the public. You can watch it if you like, and you don't have to if you don't want to. People don't want to watch Chuck Todd on the public media because he's no longer, his whole thing was that he was authorized. NBC says this is the guy who will tell you the truth and who will bring out the truth from these despicable communist or despicable, horrible Republicans, and from the sort of communist left Democrats, we'll get the real truth from them. So this is the difference between the authorized media and the public media. Is something that these people need to understand. So if you go to the public media, but your whole respect and your whole attention was because you were authorized, well, you're not authorized there. You're only authorized on NBC. You're only authorized on CBS and other horrible places that people are watching in very, very rapidly decreasing numbers. So welcome to the public media, Chuck Todd. Let's see if you can swing it. I say no, and Jim has the proof there. And so Chuck Todd came over, and he's just like Jake Tapper and Ramaphosa. He's getting exposed as, quite frankly, what Trump would probably say is a loser.
Well, and two, I think that there was an expectation for a long time that the authorized media would have a higher standard of research and a higher standard of, collecting sources and collecting people to interview for different subjects. And they were supposed to be a very high standard of reporting, and that no longer is the case. And sure, you can find plenty of podcasts or plenty of new media people who are like shooting from the hip on everything. But at least you have options. You can watch three or four, you can watch Tim Pool and be ripping your hair out over him fence sitting on something, or declaring civil war for the 80th time this month, or whatever you happen to, whatever is going on. That's kind of niche. Most of our audience, if they don't watch Tim Pool, aren't going to get why that's funny. But or you can go and watch any number of, you can even go just within the Daily Wire by itself and get totally different perspectives from Ben Shapiro and Matt Walsh on any given subject. So it's a whole new world, and legacy media is just not prepared to deal with it.
No, they're not. And like I said, the authenticity. Look, I was a journalist. I'm a recovering journalist, I guess. It's been a long time. I've been out of the game, but I know how it works, especially in Washington, especially covering the White House. Megyn Kelly upbraided Jake Tapper for not reporting on this the obvious thing, not reporting on this story about Biden's senility when it would have freaking mattered, which was when he was president, And he said, well, there were actually two reporters at the Wall Street Journal who wrote a story that, in retrospect, lightly scratched the surface of Joe Biden's senility. By basically just reporting on what everybody was seeing with their eyes and hearing with their ears. And I think the only people that went on record about Joe Biden's declining mental capability were Republicans. So they weren't even able to get any Democrats on the record. And Jake Tapper said, well, yeah, that was great reporting, and I had them on my show. And Megyn Kelly pointed out, not when the story came out, you didn't. You only put them on your show after the debate that was such a disaster for Joe Biden and caused him to have to go. When Jake Tapper joined the movement to push Joe Biden off the ticket. Let's also remember that in coordination with the media, because the Democratic Party and the legacy media work hand in hand. They're the PR, they're the propaganda arm of the Democratic Party. It was only after Joe Biden, basically pooped himself in that debate that Jake Tapper had those two reporters on his show. What did he do the day that story came out? He brought on his show Chris Coons, the despicable senator from, I don't know, is he Delaware? I don't care where he's from, but the co-chair of Biden's campaign, brought him on the show to tell everybody that the Wall Street Journal story was false, fake news, bullshit. Don't believe it. Joe is as strong as he's ever been. And so, again, I encourage you. We've gone on long already. We probably won't play all the clips that I pulled, but I encourage you to watch that Megyn Kelly, Jake Tapper interview, because she points that out. You don't get any credit, Jake, for putting those two reporters on your show when it served the purposes of the Democratic Party. That's not how it works. And that's why, inevitably, when Jake Tapper has to go out on his own because CNN will collapse and they won't have enough money to pay him anymore, The day will come when Jake Tapper has to go out on his own, and he's going to be broke as in because he has no coin of the realm of authenticity. And I feel no sympathy for him. It's going to be actually pretty glorious to watch. Well, maybe we'll have to do a full-time tracker to see whose show is the shittiest. Is it Chuck Todd or Jake Tapper in the future? We'll see.
Yeah,
And I'm sorry I keep swearing too. I really shouldn't do that.
We can make that contrast between the authorized media and the authentic media.
I want to point out Run Riot's comment too here, where he said, how many narratives of the past just aren't true? This gaslighting didn't start in 2008. And you are absolutely right. If people think that that the media started being bad with Obama, then they are very much missing a very broad spectrum of misleading coverage that's occurred over time. I mean, the one that pops to mind for me would be like Vietnam and stuff, but it goes back further than that too. Gosh, we've gone over, and if you guys have final comments to make here, I'd love to hear them. Or if you had a clip that we absolutely must play, Jim, then we will. Otherwise, we can start to wrap up, I think.
We can wrap up. I think I've pretty much emptied my notebook here. That's all the notes that I wrote and shared in messages with you too. Thanks for your patience here. But again, the reason this is important is that everybody listening to this podcast has people in their lives who have trusted and still trust the legacy, quote unquote, authorized media. And they are being dangerously misinformed. That it is basically the opposite of truth is what you're getting from the legacy media. And that is a bad thing. That is not a healthy feature of a healthy democracy. We need to be well informed. We need to be able to trust facts as we see them. We cannot have a gaslighting media like this and frankly survive very long as a free nation. And maybe the dam is going to break a little bit. Maybe we're actually going to finally find out if the legacy media is really now interested in doing journalism. Maybe we'll find out whose cocaine that was in the White House. Maybe we'll find out who was actually running the White House while our president was brains were turning into oatmeal. Maybe we're going to find out if he knew any of the people besides his son that were among the 8,000 pardons and clemencies that he had issued in the last days of his presidency, which is more than I think the last 10 presidents combined. So there's still a lot of media stories out there, legacy authorized media, that you could maybe pursue to gain some credibility, but I'm not holding my breath.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, guys, I think that's going to be it for us. I think the music has started here. Jim, if you have anything to plug.
Yeah, you can follow me on X at J Lakely. Follow the Heartland Institute on X at Heartland Inst, and always visit heartland.org.
Sam, what have you got?
Yes, please do all of what Jim just said, and also check out at SG Karnik and sdkarnik.substack.com for all the latest on what's happening around these here United States.
Yeah, definitely come watch us tomorrow at the same time on the Climate Realism Show. Thanks everyone for tuning in. We are live every single week, Thursdays, noon Central, Rumble, Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, all of those places. For audio listeners, give us a nice rating on whatever service you're using and leave a review. Thank you so much to our usual panelists and everyone who dropped in to watch and participate in chat and stuff today. We love it. And we will see you again next week.
He's a lion, dog-faced pony soldier.